Hello, and welcome back to this month's update for SAS Viya 2024.04, where we can mitigate bias, we can get new options for our graphs, and we can build decision trees from decision trees. Let's dive right in. We are starting things off inside of SAS Visual Analytics, where we have a new preview feature available. Preview meaning that your administrator has to specifically enable this feature through a feature flag. The link is in the description where you can check this feature out. Now, what this feature enables us is to get a lot more customization options for different graph types. So let's just start out by a simple bar chart and let's go to the options pane on that object. If we scroll down, you will see all the classics that we've always had, but we now also get things like changing the y-axis, so we can flip it from the left side to the right side if you want. We can also see additional features in here, like the grid lines can now be also styled, so we can have different patterns on them to further customize how things show up. And we can also specify fixed labels. So we can say something like lorem ipsum for our axis label. You can see this down here. And we can also provide a short fixed label like li. That is helpful for smaller screens where this long axis label might not be fully visible. So you can rely on this short label here. Then an additional one is we can now specify how the tick values appear down here. So instead of having something like automatically reduce overlap, we can also say we have a fixed orientation. We can rotate them to our liking so that our report looks more to what we want. And we can also add or remove the tick marks. Take real close look down here. These little black bars, they appear and disappear as I activate it. Of course, these options are also available for our y-axis here and for our legend. Let's activate one by adding a grouping on here. Now we have a legend down below. So let's take a look at that. We can now add a title to our legend, saying something like, "This is what you get." Well, now we have that in here. We can give it a text style. We can change its size. We can change its color as we like. And the cool thing about this now is that we can have more description and more control how this shows up in here. Now there is also additional new features that are unlocked by this preview feature in the line chart and in the pie chart objects, and also some of the features in the options have been moved around, so check out the link in the description to find an overview of all of the changes that have been added. Now, let's move on. We are staying in SAS Visual Analytics, but we are moving to the decision tree object. Now, this is an old staple of SAS Visual Analytics that continues to get new improvements. So let us first build a very simple decision tree where we just select our target variables and we're going to give it all other variables as predictors. Give it a second to calculate our decision tree, and now we are done. Now, this was a full decision tree trained on the full data set, but maybe as you are exploring this decision tree, you might find yourself wondering if there isn't more possibility, let's say, in this subtree to further refine our decision tree. Before, you had to build that out manually or go into the interactive mode and split everything yourself. Now you can just right-click the tree you want to grow and you can select Grow Tree from Node on a new page. And this now takes only the subset of that data. You can see there's a lot less data within that tree and total of 865 observations versus 6,000 observations. And this now gives us the ability to further drill into the details of these different trees and help us understand where our data set maybe has some hidden features or hidden distributions that we might want to leverage for our overall tree. Now, that's an awesome capability to interactively explore your data sets and further refine your models. Now, let's switch gears again and move to SAS Studio, where we will be taking a look at a new statement that has become available for Proc Forest. This statement is mitigate bias. Now, what mitigate bias allows us to do is an in-process change and re-evaluation of the dataset to understand if there is a bias that is being implicitly trained into our model based on sensitive variables, and then make adjustments in order to combat that bias during model training. This is an iterative process, so it will add some time to your model training, but we'll take a look at that. Now, we'll find this in our results output that we get. Of course, we are starting things out with the normal output that our Proc Forest gives us. That's hopefully very common to you. And then we get mitigation information. First is a short summary of what will be done here in the background. And then we get an iteration history. So you can see here we iterated 10 times on this. And then we get a nice chart detailing how the demographic parity is improved over the misclassification rate, how that changes in proportion. Then we get a detailed constraint history of all the different parameters and values of our sensitive variables. And then we get a summary of how much time this added to the training of our model. So in our case, this was a 6.4 second increase time on a 18 seconds model run. So that's like 1/3 of the total runtime. I think that's an acceptable increase to help us further reduce bias in our models, and now possible with just a simple statement. And the example I showed is available in the SAS documentation of Proc Forest. Now let's take a look at all the cool new articles that have been posted in the SAS community. First up is discovering the power of text topics and path analysis in SAS Visual Analytics. These are two objects that come out of the box as part of Visual Analytics that you might not have yet dipped your toes into, but it's high time that you do. Next is a useful tip to make geomap objects pre-zoom to an area upon report opening in SAS Visual Analytics. If you're working with geospatial data, moving your users to the exact thing that you want them to look at is always a challenge. So using this trick is really helpful. And finally, we are ending things on SAS Studio as we did before. We are demystifying Git using SAS Studio in SAS Viya with GitHub through HTTPS. This is your guide to get you started with Git. If you've never dipped your toe into, this is your chance to do it. Well, that's it from me. See you next update. Bye bye.